All right, all right. Let's go. So, welcome everybody to this live stream. I'm a bit shy on camera. Honestly, you guys might see me on YouTube a lot, posting a lot, but it's hard for me to do live streams sometimes because I get a bit camera shy. And honestly, I'm a bit nervous, to be honest, because I'm starting this new project where I'm gonna try to, live stream and be with people, every day. I'm gonna try to do this every day. Today's actually, my birthday, so this is me celebrating my new year, my new lease on life by starting a new project. I like to always be active and busy. So the live stream is up again. I did one before this, but I turned it off because I just felt a bit odd about it. But you know what? Let's do this again one more time. The people might pile in, and we'll get something cracking. This is actually live. I got it on my phone with the chat, so I'm going to be replying to the chat that way if anybody comes in. Y'all bear with me. Y'all, I'm just now learning YouTube. You know what I mean? It's something that I'm just now starting to do. So let's get everybody into the chat, everybody into the group. We got some interesting topics we're going to talk about today. I'm going to try to live stream every day for at least 1 hour to put in that work, to grow the channel, to provide y'all new content, to talk to y'all, to build with y'all, to bounce ideas around, to share information. The purpose of this content on this channel will always be to provide information for Black travelers abroad, to highlight issues that are going on within our Black world, and to educate people about the dangers of white supremacy and racism and anti Black bigotry. That's the purpose of this content. That's the heart and soul and crux of this content. Now, on the live streams in the future, I might talk about some other things. I might mix in some entertainment, some sports, whatever I feel like talking about. But today we're going to be talking about these Kenyans selling Bussy. These Kenyans are selling Bussy to Mzungus. All right, let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. I ain't got much time. So I ain't going to wait for people to pile into the chat. Y'all can watch this on the replay. Listen. So, last year, literally September 14th, 2022, I was traveling around Africa. I did my first tour of Black Sub Saharan Africa. I started in Mauritius. Some people might not claim that's a part of Sub Saharan Africa because it's an island in the Indian Ocean. Fine, y'all can think that. After that, though, we went straight to Kenya, my wife and I. We spent about 3 months in Kenya and then 2.5 months. No, pardon. Let me backtrack. We started off in Mauritius, then went to Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Then we bounced around to Zanzibar. Then we went to Arusha. Spent 3 months in Tanzania. Then after that, bounced to Kenya in Mombasa on the coast and spent 2.5 months there. So yeah, thank you, Guyana Brent. Thanks for the happy birthday. Appreciate that. So we spent 2.5 months in Kenya, in Mombasa, Tanzania. And listen, that trip to Black Sub-Saharan Africa really affected me and really changed a lot about how I view the world and that sort of thing. I'm not that type of American traveler who goes places and gets upset about the infrastructure. I'm not that type of American tourist who goes there and is upset there's no McDonald's in a country or that they don't have a Starbucks or, certain amenities that we have in the West. I'm not one of those American tourists that even gets upset when I see, poverty or corruption. Those things bother me, but I'm not going to complain about a country like that. The thing that broke my heart about going to Black Sub Saharan Africa was the white worshiping I saw and the blatant white supremacy that exists in the minds and hearts of the people in Sub Saharan Africa. As you know, if you follow my content, my wife is white passing or is a white woman. I'm not going to obfuscate it. Obviously, she is a white woman in this world, right? Even though she is Turkish. And the way that Tanzanians, Kenyans, those black people in those countries reacted when they saw her was embarrassing. People trying to holler at my wife all the time. Yes, my wife is hot. My wife is beautiful. I'm very lucky. But they would do this to even fat, nasty, ugly, Mzungus, right, which is the term for white people that they use in Swahili. They would use this, they would chase them down too. They would follow them around, trying to get their attention, trying to holler at them. And it was very embarrassing to see black people acting this way. Also embarrassing to see that there was whitening soap sold in the stores in Black Africa, that some of the same projections in media were also there as well. As you know, in the Western world, white is right or white adjacentness is what is wanted in the media, and to see that light-skinned Kenyans, the light-skinned Kenyan women were often in the music videos and on billboards and that sort of thing. It was very embarrassing to see that in Black Africa. It greatly affected me. And let's talk about what's happening in Mombasa, in the eastern coast. So if you go to Kenya, right? Kenya has a coast on the Indian Ocean. Mombasa is their major port city, the second largest city in Kenya, and it's a big tourist hub because they have beautiful beaches. I'm not going to take that away from them. And that's where also a lot of tourists go to also go on safari, swim in the ocean, that sort of thing. And we're going to read this article that I found very interesting about Kenyans selling Bussy. Kenyan men selling their Bussy. Yes, Kenyan men selling their Bussy. If you don't know what Bussy is, it's a male pussy. Let's talk about the Kenyan men selling their Bussy to white tourists, their wives, and then unfortunately, it's going to take a dark turn later in the episode. So this is from Al Jazeera.com. Poverty drives some Kenyans to rent out their wives. Poverty and unpredictable tourism industry forcing men on the East Coast to send spouses into prostitution. This was published on March 28th, 2018. Communities living by the coast depend mostly on tourism for their living. And even though this article is very old, when you travel to the East Coast, when you go to Kenya, you will see these sorts of things happening. Kwale, Kenya. I went there. Very nice place. Very beautiful, as in like the beaches and the geography and that sort of thing. It's a cloudy Sunday morning in Kenya's Kwale County, and Sunday Ramadan just woke up to get ready for another weekend of work. So sad to see Muslims, because his last name is Ramadan, so I presume him to be Muslim, that they're going to be caught up in stories like this. Wearing a green vest and khaki shorts, he washes his face and proceeds to the living room where his wife, Janet Wambui, serves him breakfast. That's beautiful. That's nice. Hey, thanks for waking me up. I hate being late for my client. The dreadlocked father of three tells his wife. She asked me to be with her until next weekend, he adds as he sips black tea. Ramadan is a male sex worker. Such a shame. Such a shame. Listen, before we get deeper into the article, I have to say this. I am not against sex work entirely, as in, I believe that there is a place for sex work to happen in society if it's done safely, if we can guarantee that the workers are not exploited, that there's testing going on to make sure that people aren't spreading diseases, and contraception is used to make sure that there are no unwanted pregnancies of either party, for either party. But I'll just say this. Why I find this article disturbing is that Black people constantly uh, seem to be in a position to be exploited by Western people when they go to Africa. And it's just a fact. It's just a fact that a lot of the times we have this mindset, um, not we, because as a Black American, we've been fighting against white supremacy, and through all our years of destitution and oppression, I can't think of a single time in the history and the study that I've done that Black Americans started selling our Bussy or uh, prostituted our wives for the Mzungus in America. But I'll just say this, man. I think that what's happening in Kenya with this sex work is just very embarrassing to see Black people having to stoop this low to sell our bodies to people who don't respect us, who come there just to use us for our genitalia, our form, and sexuality. It's very embarrassing that that's happening in Kenya, which could be a very rich nation. We have to understand that all the nations in Africa are very rich, very materially rich, and they're rich in human capital as well. And still, we have to resort to doing this. It's a shame. Wambui, his tall, dark skinned wife, works in the same industry. She came back home 2 nights ago after spending 10 days with a German tourist in an expensive cottage house a few kilometers from Maweni village where the couple resides. Ramadan and Wambui have been married for 20 years, a 20-year marriage, and this is wide open. The man's busting it wide open, and he got his wife busting it open too for Hans from Frankfurt. It's really sad. That's sad, man. That's sad that this continues to happen. And listen, the Africa has a lot of luxury. For people who have not gone to Mombasa or any parts of Africa, you might think, oh, there's it's a lot of poverty, or they don't have infrastructure, or they don't have the same amenities when it comes to the touristic places as you would expect maybe in a Dubai or Miami. That's a lie, bro. Like when you go to places like in Mombasa or in Diani Beach, my wife and I one time walked through this very luxurious hotel and resort. And when we walked inside, there were nothing but Mzungus inside, nothing but white people all inside the hotel. And this place looked like a palace. They have some of the nicest amenities that you could ever imagine for tourists when you go to places like Diani, Mombasa, Kwale County, like they're talking about. These places have some very nice places, and white people from all over the world are flooding into Africa and enjoying the luxuries that money buys in those countries. And yeah, it's very sad because I'm sure Ramadan and his wife live in the huts or the dilapidated housing that's right next to these luxurious resorts. Let's continue. But it wasn't always like this. One day in 2006, Ramadan was hawking clothes to tourists along Diani Beach in Kwale County, 30 kilometers southwest of Mombasa, when a German tourist approached him. He wanted a lady to spend some time with until his holiday ended. The 37-year-old, who speaks fluent German and teaches his wife the language, promised the man he would introduce him to his sister. My husband came home that evening and asked me if I can act as his sister and take up the offer. After a few days of deliberation, I agreed, says Wambui, 38, sitting near Ramadan while tightening his black turban. Wambui saw how life changed for other women who entered prostitution. She was a housewife who depended on Ramadan's income, which was too little. That's sad, man. That's sad. One of the I've seen prostitution happen in a family before, man. And I just want to say this. Shout out to Craig Mack. He's in the chat. But before I get to you, Craig Mack, I want to tell this story. I've seen prostitution happen in a family before. A long, long time ago when I was living in the States, I spent a summer in Minnesota because my girlfriend was from there. She was a Nigerian from Minneapolis, right? And I stayed with her for the summer. I think this was back in like 2010 or 11, sometime like that. And back then, I was a rapper, and I was trying to pass out CDs in the streets and that sort of thing, and sell my mixtapes and that sort of thing. Aside from working a part-time job during that summer in Minneapolis. And one time, I'm passing out CDs, and I run into this guy who's also another rapper, right? And he says, "Man, come back to the studio. Let's work on some music. I think you got something going." And I'm like, "Bet." Of course, I checked out the scene first. I made sure that people knew where I was, and I wasn't going in there blind and dumb. You know what I mean? Just following some guy, some street dude from Minneapolis. But we head to his apartment, right? And he's staying there with another family that has kids, right? I think they had like an 8-year-old boy and maybe a 13-year-old girl, I guess, right? So we're sitting down on the couch. I'm playing them my music with the rapper guy that I met, and then also his two friends right there. I mean, the wife, I guess the guy and his girlfriend or his wife and his kids were like somewhere playing in the back. And then I hear a knock on the door while I'm playing my music, and the guy who is the friend of the rapper guy I'm hanging out with opens the door and says, "Yeah, she's back there," right? And the guy, the dad, walks this other guy to the back room of this Minneapolis apartment, and lets this grown man into the room with his daughter. He closes the door and comes back down and sits on the couch. And I was like shocked. I was like, "Yo, what the hell? What the?" I'm talking to the guy, the rapper guy I met who invited me to the place is sitting right there next to me on the couch. So I turned to him like, "Oh, what's happening? What's going on here?" And he says, "Man, that's just what they do. That's what they do. That's how they get down." And that was one of the weirdest, saddest moments I ever saw in my life. And it's it's really sad that that happened. And just to make the story fully clear, the only reason I the only reason that I didn't say anything is, once again, I was alone, and once again I was just so in shock. I didn't know what to say there. I didn't know what to say. But yeah, man, poverty can drive people to a lot of sick circumstances, and I hope never to be in that position. And I don't think I ever could be, and I don't think any sane person could be. Let's get to Craig Mack checking in. When I was in Antalya, one of the Turkish men told me that the Turkish women are doing that too because the economy is so bad. Wow. Wow. I got to talk to my wife about that, but it's possible, man. In a lot of third world places, in a lot of places around the world where people don't have a lot of means, prostitution is one of the easiest ways to make income. But it's very dehumanizing and derogatory for the body and for the soul of that person if it's not done in a way that's controlled. I guess that's very sad, man. So, what do I'm gonna get to Greg Mack one more time. Greg Mack, what do you do for your Earth Day? Today, man, I'm working. I got some things planned with my wife later. Probably gonna celebrate my birthday on the weekend. Probably because it's a Thursday, man. What can I do on a Thursday? I'm sure there's things to do on a Thursday in Budapest, but I'm more free on the weekend. So, but thanks once again for the birthday shout outs. Let's go. So let's continue with the story. Life was tough for us. My husband's unpredictable income was not enough. And when he asked me to accept, I had no choice, she says. The family can now afford 3 meals a day and the children's school fees. That's listen, people are gonna do what they want, what they need to do to take care of their children. There's no greater impulse for people than taking care of their children. But we have to find a change in the way these societies are run that are forcing people to go into prostitution, man. We have to find a way that, black people are not forced to sell their bodies to people who have historically got a lot of their wealth through the exploitation of Africa and black people, right? And yes, I do apply that to the German tourists, to all Europeans. Europe itself is a minerally rich, minerally poor continent, is a continent that should not be the richest place on earth. Because when we look at Africa and everything Africa has, there's no reason Kenyans shouldn't be going to Germany to get sex, to do sex tourism. In an alternate universe, there are rich Kenyans flying to Lithuania and Estonia, banging out. Hans and Svetlanas and that sort of thing, and flying back to Mombasa and high fiving each other in an alternate universe. But we live in a world where everything's backwards. The richest places on earth have the poorest people, and we need to change something about that. So let's go here. I've actually been here. I probably saw this sign, but I've definitely been on this beach in this picture. Young men in tourist dependent coastal towns say they can no longer make ends meet. In Kenya's coastal towns, such stories are not new, especially in poor neighborhoods such as Mweni. Husbands agreed to rent their wives to rich tourists, mostly from Europe, without them knowing the women are their spouses. Why would I make another woman rich while I have a wife at home? God, that's a strong. That's just funny. Come on, y'all gotta laugh at that. Why would I make another woman rich? We have to say this with the African accent. Why would I make another woman rich while I have a wife at home? I can use her. She can bring the money back to her poppy. We can get it popping. Go ahead, walk the blade, honey. Bring the paper for daddy. This is crazy. This was an opportunity for us to make some cash. I got to do the African accent. This was an opportunity for us to make some cash to pay our bills. We have a lot of bills. We have to buy chicken feed. We have to put new straw on the roof. There is a lot of bills we have to pay. So baby, throw it back for the rich Frenchman. Throw it back. This is crazy. That's sad, bro. I'm just trying to find light in this because this is a dark story, honestly. But we gotta laugh at some of this stuff. And by the way, some of the Kenyans that got mad at me when I posted my video talking about, there is white worshiping in Kenya, and it was a part of my Black Sit series. A lot of Kenyans got mad at me talking about how in Kenya, they really, really love white people and they really chase down white people and they see white people as gods on earth. That's how they treat white people. If I was white, I would go to live in Africa right now, in any African country, because if you're white, well, not North Africa, but if you're white in Black Africa, you are like God. You can get the best treatment, the best service. People worship you. You got women wanting to marry you on site. It's crazy. It's crazy. And by the way, for the Africans who are going to watch this and get mad at me for saying that, I'm a black man in Europe right now. When I go outside, I don't have people chasing me down trying to take pictures, or people thinking I'm rich, or women just throwing it to me. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. But yeah, a lot of the Kenyans got mad at me for my comments talking about the white worshiping in Africa. And what do you guys have to say now? What do you guys have to say now? Listen, I'm from Black America. We've been dealing with the devil all our lives, and we've never had to resort to this. I'm going to keep it a buck. I can't think of one time in our history, in Black American history, where we were selling our bussy, our wives, or unfortunately, our children to the devil to make ends meet. We've been through hell and back, and we haven't had to resort to this in mass. It hasn't. If it did happen in our history, it did not happen so much that that they are writing articles about it in Al Jazeera, or that it's been published in a lot of historical books. There has been sexual exploitation of black people, of course, in the Americas. Absolutely. Most of Black American DNA, not most, most Black Americans have some DNA from Europe, and that is not because we like to swirl and divest. Right? It's because of the rape that happened to our people on the plantations over generations. Right? I'm probably, I probably have like maybe 10 or 15% white DNA, probably, possibly, right? But I don't think in our history we were doing this because of our economic destitution. So the Kenyans and the Africans, because this is not only happening in Kenya, really have to look in the mirror and ask themselves, why are we stooping this low? Why are some of us, I'm not saying all Kenyans, but if it's happening so much that there have been multiple articles written about it, it's happening so much in Kenya and in Africa that it is possibly a real endemic problem that needs to be solved. I can't think about this happening to us in the diaspora. Let's just keep it a buck. Let's continue though. Tourism reliance. The East African country received more than 1 million tourists in 2016, according to the Kenya Tourism Board, a government corporation. This number translated into $100 million earned in taxes, making Kenya one of the top tourism destinations in Africa. By the way, 1 million tourists isn't really that many tourists for a country the size of Kenya, and $100 million earned from that is really not a lot of money when we think about the scope and size of Kenya. There are cities in the world that get 1 million tourists in a month, right? Like Paris or that sort of thing. It's I understand these places are less developed. Plus, this article was written back in 2018, but still, the amount of tourism that is in Africa is still very, very small. But like I said before, the luxury and the accommodations and the amenities for people with money who go to Africa are top notch, possibly some of the best in the world because they're not so overrun with tourists like in European places or Asian places or Latin American places. And possibly they also cater to people with the highest dollar. To go on safari, like I said in my previous video, starts at around $2,000 just for one day of going on safari in Tanzania. It's cheaper in Kenya, but like I'm saying, going to certain places in Africa really, really requires a lot of money. And yeah, I'll just say that. In 2017, TripAdvisor, the world's largest travel website, ranked Kenya's Diani Beach in Kwale, where Ramadan and Wambui live, the seventh best beach in Africa. And when I went there, it was actually really good. It's really good. If you go to Kenya, I have to highly suggest going to Diani. I really love Kenya for its beaches because that's mostly what I saw. But Kenya is definitely more recommended for tourists to go to, in my opinion, than Tanzania. Definitely check out Kenya. But don't go there and sleep with a man's wife. Don't do that. Don't go there and support this industry, please. But all these accolades do not translate into success in the villages where locals survive solely on tourism. Ramadan Juma, 43, has been a beach operator for more than 20 years. It's a sunny Saturday afternoon, and Juma is at Diani reflecting on existence with his colleagues. Life is becoming difficult by the day, he said, wearing his black sunglasses to fend off the glaring sunlight. On a good day, he earns about $40 by helping out tourists navigate the blue waters of the Indian Ocean. But nowadays, he complains the situation has become desperate. We have been neglected. We depend on tourism as a source of living. Since most of us do not have a constant income, my colleagues go to the extreme and give away their wives to have a good living, said Juma, who also chairs the Diani Beach Boys Association. I didn't know there was a Diani Beach Boys Association. I wonder if that's really what I think it is. So, story time. If you go to places in Africa that have beaches, they have beach boys, which are many different things. But I'll start with the different type of people that I saw on the beach. So primarily, you have a group of young, athletic Africans who come together and do tricks and stunts. Like this is some shit I've never seen. Like you'll be on the beach and like five African guys will come together and pick each other up with their hands, and one will be doing a handstand while the other one holds him on his hands, and then they'll do like a backflip and form like a pyramid, and then they'll start dancing, and then they'll ask you the tourist for money for watching them perform. That's one type of beach boy, I assume. I don't know, I'm just making up stuff about the beach boys now. The second type of beach boy I saw were at least in the part of Africa, you have the gosh, I forgot the name. Oh, it's the tribe that has the red cloths and the spears and a lot of beads. Oh, I forgot the name right now. I should look it up. If anybody in the chat knows, There's a tribe in Eastern Africa. They often have ponytails. Man, let me think right quick. Oh, man, the Maasai. Yes, I thought about it right now. So if you go to the beach in Eastern Africa, at least in Tanzania and Kenya, the Maasai are everywhere, and basically they're these really tall, skinny guys walking around in red cloth. Holding spears and beads, and they're trying to, get you to take pictures with them, and then you pay them to take a picture, and then also they'll try to sell you beads, and sometimes they'll offer you weed or other drugs, right? And yeah, by the way, don't do drugs, guys. Whatever. And yeah, those are the Beach Boys I saw. Then yeah, that's basically it. If you go to, and then of course, always. I mean, when you go to a beach anywhere in the world, you'll always have a guy come up offering to, sell you some smoke if that's what you're looking for, or some nose candy, whatever. But yeah, that happens a lot. And I didn't know there was an association. They got a union. You telling me the Maasai and the Beach Boys and the weed dealers all come together on Friday evenings and talk about the price of the price of conch shells? Was that what they really doing? Anyway, let's talk quickly about tourism. You know how tourism can sometimes ruin economies. Listen, I used to work in Miami. And I understand what it feels like to work in the tourism industry because it's very low pay, it's very menial labor, and you're living basically off tips and the goodwill of others and the season. When I think about my life, I honestly have spent a lot of time in touristic places. My first jobs, like I said, were in Miami. Then I moved to Tunisia, which is basically an entire country whose economy depends on tourism. Then after that, I bounced around a bit. But then I met my wife, who is also from a very touristic place in Turkey, which is Marmaris, and I've seen how tourism, affects an economy. Like in Tunisia, during the wintertime, nobody's making money unless you're in Tunis, the major city. In Marmaris, it's pretty much the same thing. Everything shuts down once the sun goes down and those summer months no longer are around, right? When those, 35, 30-degree temperatures go away, and then Marmaris is back to below 18 degrees Celsius for the rest of the year, right? It's dead, right? And I'm sure the same thing probably happens in Mombasa. When I was in Mombasa, I was there during the summer where it was blisteringly hot, like 40 degrees for the entire 3 months, 2.5 months I was there. But yeah, I'm sure there's a winter season as well there, and I'm sure it all dies down. And economies built on tourism are unsustainable and they're unforgiving for the people. And there has to be a way to make some sustainable tourism for people where people aren't just depending on rich white foreigners to come in to make sure that they can pay their rent and not have to prostitute their wives. But let's continue, man. So let's look here. Kwale County's Chief Tourism Officer, Andy Moamunga. Kwale County's Chief Tourism Officer, Anthony Moamunga, says the local government is training beach vendors and guides to gain skills to help them earn a decent living. He adds there's not much that can be done about prostitution. Man, I don't know what to say about that. I'm going to get back to that. Let's jump to this comic from Greg Mack. I have to bounce from the EU next week. Which do you suggest, Serbia, Bosnia, or Macedonia, or Albania? I really like Macedonia, Greg Mack. That's a very good question. Serbia has really developed since the last time I've been there. When I was in Serbia, starting in like 2020, it was very undeveloped, and I bounced around a lot in the country. Novi Sad, Kragujevac, of course, Belgrade, that sort of thing. But when you go to Serbia now, it's starting to become like more European. There's a lot of Russians and Ukrainians walking around. It's a very interesting place. But yeah, Macedonia is dope. Go to Skopje. The people there are just weird in Macedonia. It's a very weird country. Albania is a hell no. And if you're black, I don't know if you're black, Craig Mack. I'm gonna be honest with you. I ain't never talked to you. I ain't never seen your face. But honestly, in Albania, even if you're white, let's keep it real. There's nothing really to do there except eat pizza and ice cream and swim like in some dirty water. Bosnia is okay. I only spent time in Sarajevo during the winter back in like 2020 or 2021, sometime like that. And Sarajevo has some of the worst air pollution I've ever seen, I've ever experienced. And it, yeah, it's like literally if you put your clothes outside to dry, they come back smelling like cigarettes. So I wouldn't suggest Sarajevo really. But yeah, let's continue reading. When the guy said the chief tourism officer said there's nothing that can be done about prostitution, I'm not against. I don't want criminal enforcement. I don't think we need police running around chasing Johns and hookers, right? That shouldn't be happening. But we have to develop that region in Mombasa. There has to be something that can be done. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll be more happy if they do start prosecuting those rich white Mzungu tourists who are coming there exploiting black African bodies. I think I would actually be happy about that. I changed my mind. Yeah, maybe they should do that. Maybe they should round up some of the uh, Europeans who come there knowingly to do sex tourism, right, like that. Especially if they're doing it with minors. Yeah, they need to be locked in a Kenyan cell. That would be hilarious. That's a movie waiting to happen. Somebody in Nollywood make that film. Mzungu behind bars. So these cases are from poor men and women who have nothing to do. Moa Munga told Al Jazeera. Tourists come here to have a good adventure and have a partner is and having a partner is part of it. This makes it hard for us to stop these cases. Back at the spectacular white sand beaches on the Indian Ocean, Tobias Juma, 42, woke up one day to find his wife had packed up and left him. Oh, that's sad. It's the worst thing any man could ever go through. In 2012, he was working for an Austrian man who asked Tobias to hook him up with a lady. This that is how I connected my wife to the Austrian man. All I wanted is my family to have a better life, but they fell in love along the way and they agreed to move to Europe, he said. He got cucked. He got super cucked. Ain't that a shame? Ain't that a shame? You know, there's a lot of people right now who might watch this stream back and say, there's a lot of people going to Africa chasing BBC, right? White women are going there. And there was a very controversial skit that Adele did on SNL a few years back, where basically she and another white woman on the cast of Saturday Night Live, which is a comedy sketch show in the US, they were standing on a beach in Africa and talking about how they are going to Africa to go to sleep with black men, essentially. The skit is not hard to find. I'm not going to show it on the live stream because I don't want a copyright strike or anything like that. But there are a lot of people who want to, exploit the black body, right? And there's a lot of people who think that black men have some sexual spectacularness about them that's going to steal away white women from black men. But it's the absolute opposite. I'm telling you, people. I'm telling you, people. Have there been? Are there a few people in the world who find black men more attractive than white men? Sure, but by and large, people generally, especially in Africa, view whiteness as the ultimate goal. They view that as the ultimate standard of beauty. And it's a shame. It's an absolute shame. There have been multiple times where I've heard people tell my wife that white is beautiful. I want to go to Europe and white women are better and that sort of thing. And I want a white woman. This is a shame. And there have been times when I was in Eastern Africa where I saw black African women chasing down white men to get them selfies and that sort of thing. And listen, I'm not against interracial relationships because I'm in one myself, I'll say. But yeah, this idea that black men are somehow sexually superior or that they're going to steal away white women from anybody, or that white women have a preference for black men is absolutely false, man. It's absolutely false. People, I look at these statistics sometimes about how people use romantic dating apps like Tinder and Plenty of Fish and that sort of thing. And by and large, black men and black women get the least matches and the least replies when they use dating apps like Tinder or like Hinge and that sort of thing. And yeah, man, I just have to say this, man. If you're a black African man and you set your wife up to go hang out with some Austrian man, and your wife has been, you know that in your culture, black women view whiteness as beautiful and they want to be around that. And of course, you're letting her sleep with him. That you're tripping, man. You know you're gonna lose your broad. You're gonna lose your broad, man. Especially if the Austrian man got a little game. He got a little swag. He might take your broad, man. That's sad. That's sad. Yeah, man. Tobias, you got cucked, and let that be a lesson to you. Don't sell your bodies and your people to Mzungus, man. Let's go here. So before she left, Tobias's wife was providing for him and their daughter. She was our family. She was our family's breadwinner. She would bring an average of $400 every month for my daughter and me. After staying with the Austrian tourist, I have been struggling since she left, he said. Tobias hasn't heard from his wife since and now takes care of his daughter on his own. Ain't that a shame? She up in Vienna getting her back blown out by I need some more German names, by Olaf. Olaf is blowing his wife's back out because he decided that it was better to try to make some money by prostituting his own wife. Ain't that a shame? Ain't that a shame, man? Dangerous risk. Communities along the Kenyan coast have seen a dramatic increase in HIV cases annually. The National AIDS Control Council estimates that Kenya's coastal counties reported 5,335 new HIV/AIDS cases in 2016, surging from 325 reported in 2014. Yeah, and I'm gonna keep it real, man. If you're going down to Africa to do sex tourism, that's you're playing with your life and you're playing with it really raw. I don't understand why people would do that for the obvious reasons. We got to keep it real. They got the germ down there heavy in Africa. The bug is real, and people think HIV/AIDS is something that is under control. It's absolutely not, man. Every year, more and more people are getting AIDS, and you got to be careful out there. You got to wrap it up. Got to wrap it up. So, Faith Mwende is the Kenyan advocacy manager for AIDS Healthcare Foundation, a global nonprofit creating awareness about HIV prevention. The danger is when such women engage with more than one sexual partner, the chances of getting sexually transmitted diseases and infections are very high, especially when she doesn't know the status of the other person, Mwende said. Despite these dangers, Ramadan and Wambui are not about to give up on the sex trade. The rent for their house is about $80 a month, and they have 3 children to feed and educate. I'm doing this to have a better life. It sounds immoral, but my husband is aware and supports it. So why not? Wambui said, as she bid Ramadan goodbye. Ain't that a shame? They say when you go to Africa, you learn to appreciate what you have in your country, or if you grew up in the West or whatever. And to hear that somebody's rent is $80 a month, and that's going to force you to prostitute your wife and to take care of your 3 children, to feed them and clothe them, that's really sad. And you know what, you do see that level of poverty in Africa. It gets really real. It's crazy because when you go to Africa, it's like you either have a lot of money and like you're barely getting by, or you have even more money than a lot and you're doing great, or you're broke and messed up, right? Like I don't make a lot of money, right? I'm a English teacher essentially, but even I was struggling to keep up in Africa because it's wild expensive going to the grocery store, paying rent, traveling around. Of course I got hit with the tourist prices as soon as I opened my mouth and that sort of thing, or when I was with my wife and they knew we were obviously foreigners. But to hear $80 a month got you out here busting it open, busting your bussy open, and letting your wife get her back blown out for $80 at least. That, man, that's sad. That's really sad. And there has to be something done about this, man. The sex tourism is essentially wrong, man. It's really wrong. All right. But yeah, let's get to some comments. Greg Matt says, I'm black. I was in Searchin, but you were in Belgrade. You were supposed to link up by the statue, Stefan Nemanja, and you replied, please don't rob me. Hey, that's facts, man. Listen, Greg, listen, I'll shoot you my number, or you should hit me up in the email and I can shoot you my number and we can chop it up for real. Because I have no fear, man. I'm sure you're a cool guy. You've been showing me a lot of love in my channel for a long time. So I want to build with you, definitely, Greg. But I'm not dumb. I'm not just gonna link up with people, that say, hey, meet me here. That's crazy. That's crazy. But I'll definitely build with you, man. Let's have some talks behind the scene and build up. All right. So Sleeping Giant Africa. Hey, sounds like the Mombasa coast to me. Sound sad times. Hey, I think you've been there too. Well, yeah, you definitely been there, Tim, because we spoke about building, about you being in Mombasa. And yeah, Mombasa is very nice, man. Luckily, HIV/AIDS has been on the decline in Africa for the last 20 years. So they say, but I'm talking about globally. If we've had more and more cases all around the world, that's going to continue to happen. But listen, man, I'm going to get my last jokes out before this topic gets really dark. Don't sell your bussy, men. Have some pride and dignity. I think I would rather commit a serious crime before I ever thought about prostituting myself or my wife. If it really came down to that, to putting food on the table, it's a shame that we're reduced to doing this as a people. But let's move forward because it gets even worse. Because people think prostitution is just something that happens mostly between consenting adults, grown people who are making grown decisions about what to do with their body and money. But it's actually not. We're going to talk about this article I found. New efforts needed to stop child sex tourism in East Africa. This was written by Mohammed Dakar for Enact Africa. All the links, by the way, will be in the description. This was published on April 5th, 2019. So even though these articles are a bit old, they still apply, I would say. Innovative bilateral mechanisms could help to curb the child sex trade in Kenya and in Tanzania. In 2006, a report by UNICEF and the government of Kenya revealed the shocking extent of the child sex industry in that country, finding that up to 30% of teenagers in some coastal areas are involved in casual sex for money. More than a decade later, this scourge has taken on new dimensions, some of which are linked to the boom in East Africa's information and communication technology center. Ain't that a shame? 30% of teenagers are casually exchanging sex for money. Listen, there was a time when I was in Indonesia, and one of the things that shocked me about Indonesia when I was in Jakarta back in 2019, no, 2018. Yeah, I was in Jakarta back in 2018, and I was shocked by the level of prostitution that takes place in that country, right? And when you go to Jakarta, you see these large big buildings, a lot of infrastructure, paved roads, all the modern amenities and businesses that you'll find in the West and that sort of thing. And you'll find a lot of advertisements, open advertisements for special massages, or you'll find at the bottom of hotels like basically brothels. You know what I mean? Like the sex industry is worldwide and global. And unfortunately, because a lot of countries are repressive when it comes to sexuality, or not open to liberating sex work, we're going to continue to have children be exploited through the sex industry unless we can find a way to um, decriminalize this, destigmatize this, legalize it, however you want to say. There has to be something done globally about the sex trade, the sex industry, to make sure that children aren't exploited. Because the way it's going right now, we're going to continue to have stories like this of kids being forced, teenagers being forced to sell their bussy to Olaf from Vienna. Let's continue. So, a study released by Terre de Homme, my French is bad, last year links the involvement of children in the sex trade in Kenya to the growth of digital communications and social media in particular. Additional analysis indicates that high levels of poverty also contribute to the rise in the child sex trade. Notably, UNICEF reports that Eastern and Southern Africa have the world's second highest percentage of children involved in child labor. God damn. 26 of all children between the ages of 5 and 17. That's a shame. That's a shame. Look, man, listen, I got to say this once again. I've never heard about this happening to us in Black America. We've been dealing with poverty. We've been dealing with bad infrastructure, dilapidation, not having access to resources, and we didn't have to resort to this. And let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. I'm keeping it all the way real because my channel is called Simon Hill Keeps It Trill. It's a shame that in Africa, with all those strong, powerful Black men who love to run around and talk about how Africa is for Africans, and African men are the strongest and the best and all that sort of thing, and y'all ain't standing up for your own kids. Y'all letting your kids go out there and get prostituted, man, by other Africans and also by Mzungus and other foreigners. That's a shame. It's an absolute total travesty that men are not standing up and saying that something has to be done to stop that sort of activity from happening in their countries. I'll continue. In coastal towns, the increase in the child sex trade has also been linked to an influx of foreign tourists. In Malindi, expats, who in many cases are also foreign investors, have been alleged to run sex rackets in close cooperation with existing local networks. In places like Mombasa, the second largest city in Kenya, the underage sex trade is highly visible, and it's not unusual to see tourists soliciting underage girls on public beaches and in nightclubs. Tanzanian cities like Dar es Salaam, Zanzibar, and Tonga are no different. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm keeping it real. My channel's called Simon Hill Keeps It Trill. I did not see underage girls, as far as I know, when I was in Mombasa. And I stayed in Mombasa for about a month, if I remember right. And then we went to Diani. Then we spent like a month and a half there. I did not see underage prostitutes, but I did go to a club in Mombasa city center called Casablanca. My wife and I had a great time there. I think there's footage that will be coming out on our second channel, Backpack Bandits. And when I went to the bar in this club, Casablanca, I got approached by a streetwalker. A streetwalker came up to me. And by the way, the club was packed with streetwalkers. It was packed. Like, I've been around the block and I know when I'm talking to a working girl. And this girl in a red dress comes up to me when she sees me at the bar buying a bottle, because buying a bottle in Casablanca was about $20. So I was like, oh, I'm about to ball out of control. And so yeah, we bought the bottle, and the streetwalker in a red dress comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder, and she's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, okay," and I'm not. Uh, Listen, man, there's a lot of working people out there in Mombasa, right? I said hey to the girl. She looked me up and down, and she saw that I was, with my wife. I guess possibly because I looked back at my wife over there, and black men don't cheat, so there was never a threat that I was going to do anything inappropriate. But yeah, there's a lot of working girls in Mombasa, I guess, because from my experience going to that club in Casablanca, they were out there working and twerking, and they were ready to get it popping. And I'm gonna keep it real. I didn't see the underage girls, but who knows? That girl that tapped me on the shoulder might have been 16. I don't know. I don't know. So let's go here and continue. An interview with a former victim of child sex in Mombasa revealed that free to use social media apps are used to market underage boys and girls. The victim pointed out that clients include locals from Mombasa and the counterparts from Dar es Salaam. This is an indication that not only tourists are involved in the sex trade, but also Kenyans and Tanzanians. In some cases, parents are complicit and turn a blind eye to their children's involvement in sex work, often using justifications such as economic hardship. Total shame, a travesty. Like the story I told earlier about the parent in Minnesota who allowed their child to be abused. I think parents that do that should be buried under the jail. You should be castrated. You should not be allowed to have children if you ever allow your child to be used as a prostitute. It doesn't matter how hard life is. If you're a man and you got 2 feet, 2 hands, uh whatever, one hand, one leg, whatever, if you're a man or even a woman, because there's a lot of strong single mothers out there, you should do whatever to protect your children. You should be popping it open first. You should get your bussy broken before you ever think about letting somebody lay down with your child. That's sad that these parents in Kenya and Tanzania are so destitute that they're allowing their children to go like this. And listen, I understand poverty can make people do extreme things. I just said earlier, I would probably do a crime like rob a bank before I ever, put my legs to the air. But it's a shame that we're in this world where the richest countries in the world, meaning African nations who have so much material wealth, human capital, great geography, locations. Obviously, they're places that people want to visit and develop and build because many Mzungus are going there, many Indians are going there, many Arabs are going there, developing, buying land, developing property, and that sort of thing. Many people want to visit and see the nice beaches. So Africa has everything that it needs to be one of the richest places in the world. There can be a real Wakanda. But because we live in an exploitative capitalist world and also a world full of white supremacy where it's demanded that the white supremacists must have a poor black underclass, a global black poor underclass, that we continue to see this happen. It's a shame. And there has to be a paradigm shift or something that causes this no longer to be. Let's continue. The practice of underage sex violates international law. For example, the 1989 UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, strengthened by its 2000 optional protocol, commits states to put in place appropriate measures to combat and eradicate all forms of violence against children, including sexual abuse. Kenya and Tanzania both ratified this UN convention, and later the African Union Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Under Article 53 1B of the 2010 Constitution of Kenya, children have the right to be protected from abuse and other forms of violence. Under the 2006 Sexual Offenses Act, anyone found guilty of committing an indecent act with a child will receive a prison sentence of not less than 10 years. Article 14 explicitly criminalizes child sex tourism. The 1998 Tanzanian Sexual Offenses Special Provisions Act outlines similar penalties. It is clear, however, that implementation has been lacking. Yeah, all of this is on paper, man. Like, seriously, like, when you go to Africa, man, if you've really been in Africa, you know that the paper doesn't mean anything. The paper with the law doesn't mean anything to the compared to the paper with the. My mom wished me a happy birthday, but trying not to dox her. Hopefully, I can make sure I protect her identity. But anyway, like I'm saying, man, the paper that matters in Africa is green, right? That's what matters. All these articles, all these laws that they're writing about, we're protecting the children and anybody caught with a kid is going to get 10 years in jail. That's all hypothetical on paper because I've seen corruption happen with my own eyes in Kenya. I've seen people pay off the police. I've seen people openly break the law. It's the wild, wild west in Africa. The law is arbitrary, and I'm pretty sure the people that are supposed to be enforcing this law are engaging with some of this activity, if not condoning it or making money from it. Hypothetically, I don't know, allegedly. I would just assume so because this is obviously still happening. They passed all these articles years ago. And then in 2018 or 19, whenever this article was published, they still had to talk about how 30% of the teenagers are involved in selling their bussy. All right. A former victim of child sex in Mombasa explained the free to use social media apps are used to market underage boys and girls. Yeah, let's build on that. Like Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. All of these apps should be more active in stopping that. Like, I know it's hard for them to police what goes on everywhere on the apps, but they're able to block certain people just for giving a negative opinion about another group. But yeah, they're not able to find out and target the people that are advertising children for prostitution or people who are actively seeking that out, because this needs to be stopped. There has to be some monitoring of these apps to make sure that these kids are protected, man. In many instances, the law enforcement response has been limited to beach patrol police. While necessary, this measure is far from sufficient, as sex crimes often take place in private spaces away from public view, including private villas and on boat trips. While national laws are in place in both Kenya and Tanzania, there is no bilateral implementation framework. Having such a mechanism in place could boost attention and resources, since local and regional authorities currently under-recognize this grave threat. Both Kenya and Tanzania ought to take far reaching measures under national and international law to address child sex tourism. Bilateral efforts, such as the adoption of a strategy against child sex tourism, would be a good starting point. Such a strategy should include civil society educators and healthcare practitioners. At the local level, governments should prioritize working directly with communities in addressing this issue. Yeah. Um, there has to be some coordination. Tanzania and Kenya, they're like brothers. The way these countries are, they basically have very similar cultures. They both speak Swahili, and they both have a large Muslim population. About this, there has to be some coordination and some actual action by the people in charge to make sure that the kids are not being exploited like this, whether by their own people or by foreigners. You know what I mean? And the sex tourism industry in Africa is a shame. It's a blot on us that we allow our vulnerable people to be exploited by people who are predatory within the nation and people who are predatory coming from outside of the nation. And I'll just land my plane with that. I want to jump to some comments real quick. Let's build. So I don't know what Tim said. Likewise, Sleeping Giant Africa. Likewise, did hear a story of two though. I don't know what that means. But yeah, if anybody's got any comments, we're answering comments now. And I hope that you enjoy this live stream. I'm going to be doing these live streams daily, building with y'all no matter what. Today is my birthday. I'm 33 years old. I'm going to be releasing a video talking about that later today. I'm also going to be releasing some shorts content as well as more posts on my channel talking about whatever. I'm just going to try to write and be more active because this channel is a great platform. It's a great opportunity for me to express myself and to also provide information for other Black travelers and tourists and to build and grow and develop and that sort of thing. And also just to educate myself as well. But we're always going to be advocating for something better for Black people than this world that we're living in now, right? We're always going to be advocating for something that's different than this paradigm where we live in, where we are constantly the exploited underclass of the world, where we are constantly the people who have to sell our bodies, sell our lives, sell our physical labor just to be the back broken masses, right? We're not taking that anymore. We're not taking that anymore. Who might get mad because I'm talking real spicy about y'all now, because y'all should be doing better than this. And I've been saying constantly, we've been going through this as Black Americans and other Black people in the diaspora. We haven't been selling our bussies, selling our wives, selling our kids to white people to try to make money. Don't get mad at me. Get mad at your own people for actually doing that first. Y'all better clean up y'all streets. Y'all got to clean up that this habit that's going down. Y'all got to demand that the leaders in your country, the economic engine in your country, is actually working for the people. There's a lot of wealth in Africa. I saw big money in Africa. When you go to Africa, you might think, oh, people don't have, the modern amenities. I saw Lamborghinis, Bentleys, all sorts of fancy cars in certain areas of in every African country I've been to. Mauritius, Tanzania, Kenya, Tunisia, right? There's money in Africa, and the people there should not be living hand to mouth like that. It's really embarrassing and sad that we continue to be like this, the permanent underclass of the world. It does not have to be this way. We have resources that we can exploit. We have people who are young, vibrant, and hungry, ready to develop and grow. And we shouldn't be out here, you know, uh, chasing down white people for visas, money, and that sort of thing. It's embarrassing that it's come down to this. But listen, I'm only included in this because I'm a Black person, right? I'm not a Kenyan, not a Kenyan. Once again, I'll say this, you know, I can sympathize with our people, but when it comes to groups, we have to start modeling some good behavior that different groups of us have. And there are some positive parts of Kenyan culture, but I really think that the Kenyans need to learn about the effects that white supremacy has on the mind. There shouldn't be bleaching soap and bleaching cream sold in Africa. Uh, Black Africans shouldn't be chasing down white tourists. And I don't want to hear any excuse about, we do this for the money. We do this for the tourism. We do this to make them happy. We are welcoming people. Nah, man, it's embarrassing the type of stuff y'all be saying and doing to white tourists. That's the number one thing I picked up from my trips in Africa. But yeah, let's get to some saying and doing to white tourists. That's the number one thing I picked up from my trips in Africa. But yeah, let's get to some comments. Happy birthday from Sleeping Giant Africa. Thank you. Greg Mack says, did you try the goulash yet in Hungary? Man, I know I need to. I know I need to, man. Maybe I'll do that for my birthday this weekend. I'll try some Hungarian goulash. Maybe that's what I'll look into, honestly. But yeah, man, honestly, here in Hungary, the food is actually really good. A lot of spicy food, a lot of food that's very different in flavor. They like cheese a lot. Their bread is really good. Fruits and vegetables out here are fresh. Probably after this stream, gonna eat an orange. Love oranges, guys. Quick story. Did you know Idi Amin used to eat like hundreds of oranges a day? Idi Amin used to eat so many oranges that he used to have constipation and sickness. And Idi Amin also believed that if you ate oranges, it would give you virality and it would keep that thing hard. But he, even when he got sick, and he continued to just keep on eating oranges. His doctors warned him, "Yo, you're eating too many oranges," and he would just say, "Bring me another." I think in part of his long ass name, because Idi Amin had a long name like Lord and Chief of the world and master of all the animals and beasts in the land and sea. And I think also in that name is something like Master Orange Eater or something like that. Somebody look that up. But yeah, I'm going to try the Hungarian goulash. Anyway, if anybody's got any comments, let me know now. I want to say thank you to everybody who supported this live stream. I'm going to be doing more. Catch you on the playback. Got some more content coming today. We're going to be working hard this year to blow up this channel and really grow and develop, providing more information, talking about new topics. Anybody have comment? If anybody has topic suggestions, let me know. Send it to me. If you really want to build with me, send me an email and we'll work on something. All Black travelers, all Black people are welcome to be interviewed on this channel. We're really trying to blow this thing up right here and really make this a very special year. By the time we're 34, by the time I'm 34, because right now I'm 33. By the time I'm 34, we're trying to have six figures, baby. Six figures. We're not going broke again. Not going broke again. So, last comments before we're out of here. Craig Matt says, I've been to Budapest right now. I'm in the Czech Republic with my girlfriend. We're going on 4 years. Congratulations, Craig. Love that girl. You know, treat her like your world. Greg Mack, stay safe. I'll drop you my email in one of your videos. Absolutely. But you can, Greg Mack, you can find my email in my about section. Send me an email. We'll build behind the scenes. And yeah, we'll chop it up for real, for real. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll catch you on the flip side and peace.